All right, Jim, everybody. Give me a few minutes here while. Excuse me. Sorry for the echo. Let's give it a few minutes here so we can get our co-host to be able to come up. I saw him for a moment. In the meantime, I'm going to put music back on. We're just going to be talking about like what's happening in the Web3 space today. I think there's a few things that have you know that are in the news, crypto news. I think the one that I want to explore a little bit more, and forgive me for, I guess, being an old horse, um, but that is some of the crypto regulations or laws that are being um, currently either being discussed or that are being signed into law. I think I talked about this a few weeks ago in terms of the regulatory uncertainty, I guess, lack of clarity that affects many entrepreneurs that are stateside. Yeah, anyways, I do want to chat about that and setting an invitation to our co host, Polaris, to join us on stage. Are you having technical issues, Polaris? While Polaris joins us, I'm going to look for that article, or less so article, more so the news on the SEC. Let's see. Pulling it up. What is her name? Is it Heaton? Nothing is showing up on my feed. Maybe nothing is happening in crypto news. I'm kidding. I'm trying to find.
GM. Humpty, I
There you
think
are.
like the video. Have you got the video on? Because I can't see it. It's probably like throttling the stream.
No, I don't know why. I'm gonna have to ask Jeff to turn off video. I don't know why he sets it up. I don't like to turn it on. I mean, I already have enough technical issues as it is. I don't need to add um, another kind of thing that's going to cause some issues with this stream. How are you doing, man?
Good. I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I was trying to find the article that talks about the decision that was made, I believe, yesterday. That is basically good news for crypto, at least in the US. But I can't for the life of me find that. So if
Yeah, it
you
was. Was
have
that the
access to
bill?
it,
Is that the bill which was just passed in the House?
yeah, that needs Biden's signature, which I think got Biden's signature. I don't. I need
No,
to.
no, no, no. Uh, I mean, there's two bills which we've been talking about. Like one is where I'm not sure how the U.S. System works. So I know there's a Senate you guys have, which where the bill needs to get passed, and then you've got the senators. What's the one before that? Is it the councilors or is it?
There are two houses to Congress. It is the House of Representatives and the Senate, and it passed both, from what I understood. So it was signed by Congress, and it gets sent over to the president's office to basically get the last signature.
Right. Okay. Because as far as what I learned was that, like, the there's two bills. One is about crypto itself and like the way SEC is ruling. SEC seems to be like controlling all the shots over it. Now they're not going to be doing it, and there's another department which is going to be foreshadowing the future aspects. I think that could probably be. And then another one is ETFs, like
Yeah.
approval. I think ETF approval. But again, that's still, it's not 100% because it needs to go to the Senate, and then from there. But all of these things, deep, like there's they've started the ball rolling in terms of, like, some sort of law or some sort of pro crypto, really, like, creating a law which is going to be beneficial for everyone, where there's like some sort of a great understanding of what we're dealing with. So it's a great move forward. So yeah, 100% totally agree. But yeah, there's a lot of news in terms of stuff like that which has happened, and I think I've kind of like mixed everything up in one go now. So we need to, like, I'm gonna try to find some docs as well, unless you find some.
Yeah, no, I've been searching. Oh my gosh. Did I literally just unmute the wrong device? Yeah, it tells you. I thought I was muted anyways. Apparently, I wasn't even muted this whole time. So apologies if I was making sounds in the background. But what I was gonna say is I've been trying to like look while you were talking, and I couldn't find anything specific to the conversation that we're having of the bill that is currently, I believe, sitting at the president's desk. But we'll see. The one that I think is really interesting is this whole conversation about the Ethereum ETF being close to having a decision. Like, I got to be honest with you, I was not expecting that. I thought there was going to be a bigger gap between Bitcoin ETF and the Ethereum ETF. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just jaded from years of, kind of dragging their feet. That suddenly that we're getting the Ethereum ETF within like 90 days, I believe, of like the Bitcoin ETF. So that's good news. It's just unexpected news. Are you still looking for articles over there, Polaris?
100%, bro. It's good news, and I think that there is a lot of money involved when it comes to ETH and BTC. So, like, getting like ETH pushing forward, considering that, like, right now retail and the way, I don't know. I think ETH's ecosystem is much more easier. Solana is even easier. Like, it just depends, like, how you look at it from a retail perspective. I can't even like imagine now. I'm so deep down into the rabbit hole that I can't even imagine what retail perspective would be. When I do try to explain things to like someone who's not crypto native, I can imagine the sheer level of information I unload and not realize it. But just now, like an hour ago, there's another bill which has been passed in the house, uh, where it says that House passes bill to ban Federal Reserve from issuing CBDCs. So that's another news which has just come out.
CBDC. Let's check that out. Um,
You want me to pin that?
yeah, pin them all, man. Tweet it, cast it, post it, pin it. That's gonna be the new Daft Punk song. Tweet it, cast it, post it, pin it. Dun, 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 dun.
Mm.
You guys don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways,
Yes, bro. Work it, do it.
there you go.
That's one of my favorite. It's on my post shirt. Oh, hang on. Where have I shared the post?
Okay, I'm seeing House passes HR 5403, CBDC Anti Surveillance State Act, and
Yeah,
someone's
bro. I
summary
just
saying,
pinned it.
yeah, there you go. House passes bill to ban the Federal Reserve from issuing a CBDC. So, okay, let's look at this from a global lens. In Asia, I believe China already has and is using a CBDC, right? Uh, don't call me an expert here. I have to do my own research because I was not expecting to talk about China's CBDC. So there is this like digital monetary system that is in place in China, and they're able to, I guess, use this for digital payments across, I guess, the entire uh, country. Whereas this news would mean that the US doesn't have the same freedom. Or should I say, maybe not the US, because we need to be very clear. The Federal Reserve is not the US government, right? That's a separate private entity. But the Federal Reserve does basically control the monetary system. Um, so they're not able to create a CBDC. And I would imagine that if a CBDC would be created anywhere, it would be in at the Federal Reserve level. So them not having the ability to do this is really interesting because some might say this cripples the US government and be able to participate in digital payment systems, which appear to be the future of finance. Someone, of course, could speculate too that the possibility then is would the US use a publicly available stablecoin to build upon? I mean, there's a lot of coins that are already kind of supposedly peg themselves on the US dollar, right? USDT, USDC. There's algorithmic stable coins too. We're not going to get into that. But I think the two most popular ones are those. Do you have any thoughts about what that would mean? Like, if the US were to say, okay, we're not going to create our own CBDC, we're going to use a stable coin that exists already. And what would that mean for that stable coin? Because would it be privatized?
I mean that. I mean, it opens up a very interesting conversation, really. Like, and I think to start that conversation, we need to like first of all look at what is value. How do we deem value? The basics of all of this, like peer-to-peer transaction. How does that deem value? And then once we understand all of those deep concepts, then we can like say that okay, what is like USDC, USDT, and all of those different uh, digital currencies which represent the US dollar. Now, again, like there's different aspects. Some digital currencies are backed by an actual dollar. Some of them are like backed by some algorithms which are backed by a dollar. Some of them are pegged in different. They've all got their own mechanisms and they get audited. But again, like it's like if you're creating value and if someone's got a digital asset like ETH or BTC and they don't want to like off ramp onto USDC, they can. And it just depends on like how we perceive value. It's like if you can like trade in BTC, if you can buy goods in BTC, then why on earth would you want to use USDC? And also if you are like using USDC in terms of uh, I don't know, like parking your crypto, it is confusing for governments to use it though. I mean, uh, they can currently use that, but then it's like which stablecoin do they validate for their usage? Like Coinbase uses USDC. Um, it creates a very interesting conversation, I think, and we need to ponder further into it. Like the fact that they're not like it's been banned on a that the House passes a bill to ban Federal Reserve from issuing a CBDC. That does create like so what exactly are they going to use in the digital realm? Because currently we have got like crypto, um, which kind of like does that value proposition aspect. Also, if the Federal Reserve, let's say, like, creates quantitative easing, and that quantitative easing has an impact on the total supply of US dollars, then how does that impact their digital currencies? And then, all of that conversation starts, that like, and it's a very difficult um, algorithmic value proposition, which is hard to concur at this level. But I'm sure, like, these things are developing, and everyone is trying to like try to understand, like, where exactly do we eventually lead towards from all these developments. And there's going to be a lot of like different thoughts, and let's see which one moves forward.
Yeah. I mean, I guess this is something that we need to track a little more closely just because I think it's an interesting conversation, in terms of things that could have a far reaching impact, I suppose. Um, Obviously, when it comes to stable coins, it's a very kind of unique proposition, both in terms of what they do for crypto, but also if something like this were to be enacted, then like what is the far reaching impact that would have? Because I think most of us who deal in crypto, stablecoins are kind of one of the primary tools we have at our disposal to be able to transact, right? Or store value in some non-speculative asset, right? Because I mean, traditionally speaking, I think that's how you think of like stable coins. It's not a speculative asset. I guess the only speculation is that it will always stay pegged, as opposed to maybe another asset where the speculation is going to be volatile with the likelihood that it will go up. So, in terms of the Ethereum ETF, I'm curious if you have any thoughts because, I mean, I guess we already saw kind of like what the Bitcoin ETF did or didn't do, I suppose, to the market, and overall what it does to the narrative around a token. So I guess if I were to share my thoughts, and this is my personal opinion, the Bitcoin ETF did not necessarily drive much more value to the token than it might have already kind of had for itself. And I think, as some people like to say, the price, or what is it, the ETF was built in to the or priced in, so you shouldn't expect any kind of market movement based on that. But if I gotta say, like again, personally, my opinion, this is not financial advice, obviously, but when it came to the conversations that I had with my family, conversations that I've had for years about Bitcoin and blockchain, it was only after the ETF that many of them said, hey, maybe we should add Bitcoin to our portfolio, right? As an asset that could have some sort of value long term, just like any other asset in their portfolio. I thought that was interesting because I've been talking to them about, Bitcoin and blockchain and just crypto in general for like 6 or more years. But it was the Bitcoin ETF that gave them some, I guess, solace or comfort in knowing that there are institutions that are now buying Bitcoin, right, through this ETF. I wonder, am I going to be able to have the same conversation with them after years of talking about Ethereum that once the ETF goes through? I think that's an interesting question. Like Polaris, what do you think? First of all, like, did the Bitcoin ETF really do anything for Bitcoin? Will the Ethereum ETF do anything for Ethereum? And I don't mean price wise. I just mean maybe from the way that it's perceived and the way that it's adopted at the institutional level.
I mean, I haven't really checked the total market cap of the industry right now, but I'm sure like about 3 4 months ago it was 1.3 trillion. Before the ETF it was just 1.3 trillion dollars. That's not a huge amount compared to the business world, which is currently dealing with so many. So it's like not that much. So having these big giants step in and look into cryptography, first of all, is a positive move forward, because I think, like, to be quantum proof and to have quantum proof databases, you need to incorporate cryptography to secure yourself, like on a very base level, before even cryptocurrency kicks in. And then from there, like, we need to have a way of mode of transaction which is secure as well. So again, that brings us back to that CBDC thing as well, that, like, if CBDCs can, like, go through that verification process, when already we've got like so many different digital currencies already is like doing that with reference to USD, then, you know it's that future proofing aspect, and making sure that it's quantum proofed as well. Now these are complicated concepts, and uh, for someone who's like specializing in, let's say, carving wood, or someone who specializes in growing trees, or someone who specializes in making sure that the soil is fertile, or someone who's a biochemist, it's this is not their forte. But for them to be able to, like, participate in this uh, innovative uh, movement, which can perhaps secure the way we do things, do business, automate systems, using, you know the supercomputer which ETH is. um, I think that opens up like a multitude of possibilities. And with the ETH ETF, the same thing goes in, like, because I think there's a demand there, and because of that demand, these ETFs are being pushed forward. I was actually talking about it the other day with some of my friends in the saunas, and they were talking. And this kid, he was 22 years old. He asked me, like, what's the best approach right now? And I said, like, maybe, look into ETFs, because they cover a wide array of different asset classes, and you tend to, like, get the cumulative impact of that ETF. And for someone who doesn't want to, like, go through the whole process of, you know all the drama which comes with learning about this, people don't want to do that. So ETFs is a good way forward. So if that happens for ETH, well, I'm not sure if you've seen, like, someone, like, in CNBC, there was a program, someone was talking about Solana ETFs in there as well. So, like, ETFs might be like a way forward for uh, your non technology enthusiasts to, like, to jump on board and join the show, really, like, rather than just sitting on the sidelines watching all the stuff happening. Because, and also, as you said, it kind of like validates the whole movement, in terms of, um, 6 or 7 years ago, Jamie Dimon uh, turning around and saying all of these different statements about BTC, and all these institutions, like, being very harsh towards all of that, all of uh, the crypto movement. This whole change opens up, conversations, which eventually leads towards people. And also, currently, the whole environment which we are living in right now, it's a very unstable kind of environment, where things are happening left, right, and center. As a result, like, unpredictable behaviors are, like, so as a result, people are moving towards, like, more riskier, cost of living, I think, has a huge impact on this as well, that, like, as a result, people are moving into more riskier plays, because it's becoming very difficult. Inflation is becoming hard. um, Economies are struggling with a lot of different aspects. and it's happening everywhere. So yeah, people would like to have exposure to these asset classes, and having ETH, and then I think Solana. I don't know what they're going to offer on that Solana, but I'm sure there's some very good projects. Not like being disrespectful at all. You know.
I mean, I think Solana as a blockchain is well regarded by a lot of people. So, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the speed is absolutely. That slightly that comment was that laugh was more towards like the stuff which has been happening
sure.
lately on the blockchain, and it's been a lot of like there's been a lot of abuse of like the way the blockchain is being used by the users, not the blockchain itself. It's been like more towards the users, and the fact that because it's so cheap or like cost
Hmm.
effective to run that blockchain, things tend to accelerate so fast in that environment compared to a much more fee constricted environment like ETH, where you do need some uh, a lot of m- you need some finances to be able to like initiate a smart contract and be able to like scam. But whereas in Solana it's easier, and like with other blockchains it's becoming easier and easier, which brings us to that thing which happened. Like there was a blockchain exploit, I believe, which happened last week on fun dot pump or
Hmm.
something, and about 300 million. Initially it was like supposed to be 4 million, but 300,000 something was like taken from that smart contract. But yeah, I mean, this is just normal news over
Yeah.
here. Like these dramas happen. But yeah, Solana is a great blockchain. But there are some like cultural nuances which come with that. All of these different aspects of it, speed and cost effectiveness also brings, you know, DDoS kind of
Mm,
like situations.
yeah.
If that makes any
No, I know
sense.
what you're saying. I mean, I think historically, not to get too far from the point, I think historically, yeah, Solana has had some bad PR with some of its uptime and things like that. But I don't know. Like I said, there's a huge community and fan base of that blockchain, and I personally don't use it, um, so I can't speak about it from a user perspective. But I definitely know plenty of in my community and circle of friends who are big advocates for Solana. I don't know if they're pumping their own bags or they actually mean what they're saying.
I've used the blockchain, bro. I've used it. It's very
Yeah,
very fast. It's very very good. It's very very
yeah,
accessible. There's dApps there which you can
yeah,
use, which are very cool. So yeah, it's very interesting. There's a lot of innovation which can be done over there, and that I think like we do kind of like need something like Solana as well as these ecosystems need to coexist with each other with a bit of tweak, here
yeah.
and there. There's been some very interesting like variations which I've seen, like for example, the pups. So in ordinals there's like this group called Bitcoin puppets, and then if you was holding like opium, then you got airdrop puppets, and if you had puppets then you got airdrop the pups token, if I'm
Hmm.
correct. But then that was a BRC20 token, but then it got bridged onto Solana. And then because of that bridging, uh, it got exposed to all these different users which never had the opportunity to like jump onto the BTC ordinal ecosystem. And then that token did really well in terms of like, that bridging aspect, I think was a good move. But so yeah, I mean, that was that was interesting. And then now people are bridging it back to what's his name. They're learning about ordinals. They're learning about people who didn't know about, because it's a bit of a mission trying to like do all these runes and move ordinals, and it's very
Yeah.
complicated. It can it can get very complicated. But then people who are used to the Solana ecosystem, they were like, as like they were just buying it directly from Solana, because it was already breached, and then just dealing with it as they would if they wanted to hold, or it's it's very interesting. And for me it was very interesting as well, because I got exposed to like two or three
Hmm.
blockchains, and I'm very wary of using all of them. Like, I just tend to like stick to the stuff which I know. So it was good for me, and I realized like it's like, every blockchain has its own culture, and maybe we need those different micro cultures here and there, and then which eventually make the culture which we call Web3. From a Web3 thinker's perspective, it's very interesting.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. I'm really interested to see it kind of continue to develop. But it's really interesting that the argument you made that I really want to touch on, because I think it's part of the narrative or the conversation we're having, is the ETF one, where there is a possible future where the accessibility of crypto from a financial perspective, I wouldn't say utility perspective, is their um, integration through ETFs, right? So I think that that's a really interesting kind of perspective to take, where it's like, oh, Bitcoin ETF kind of started this, and it makes sense that it starts on Bitcoin. The Ethereum ETF is the one that takes on after that, and Solana FTF and whatever other ETFs get put into the traditional financial system. I think that that's an interesting kind of perspective, where again there's a certain reputability, maybe a certain level of confidence that people might have when tokens projects go through those traditional financial rails. Of course, I think one other argument that someone in my group of friends mentioned, maybe just as recently as today, is, or actually, I think this was at the Bitcoin pizza party that I was at last night. Someone was saying where these ETFs are now just a new way for traditional financial systems to own decentralized financial systems. Uh, Maybe there's some truth to that. I'm not quite sure. I haven't given it much thought beyond when he said it in conversation. I guess I also want to say, if there's nothing else we can touch on here in terms of the news, I don't want to overextend the space beyond the conversation. So we can cut it early. I think we've had really good success with very short update type spaces. Polaris, anything else you wanted to add?
I mean, it's a open market, you know. I mean, if they want to come and buy as much as they want, let them, bro. It's like an open market at the end of the day. Like, you have your own fill your bags to the brim, and then let everyone.
Fill your bags. There you go. What a degen.
Fill your bags as much as you can, and then let it roll. What can you do? So ETFs are like one of those ones, bro. Like, if you missed the show, if you haven't been here, if you haven't been like, if you haven't gone through all the hard work, because there is a lot of hard work. Like, I've got white hairs, bro. Like, on my chin, like literally my whole chin is filled with white hair. And I remember I used to have black hair. So that's like the day and night kind of like, it amalgamates into one. The drama which you deal with on a daily basis, just on an information level, is so much that, like, if you're willing to go through all of that, then you will be like, you will end up like, learning, earning, positioning yourself correctly, and then at that point I think ETFs would be um, a good thing for you. But then obviously if you haven't done that, and if you just come in and then suddenly this is happening, and of course, I mean, it's an open market at the end of the day, and this is how it works. uh, you know Money makes money,
Yeah.
and we can't deny that fact. So if capital is coming in, we need that capital, because as I mentioned, just 3 months ago, it was the whole total market cap was 1.3 trillion. And I mean, this is not it. The world is This is not it. And we're here, there's us trying to like make this world a better place, and we're trying to like use this technology and incorporate that with, like, you know AI and, digital systems, and we're trying to reform finance and stuff like that. And as far as like the money is concerned, we've just got like a very small fraction of that total volume which is out there in the world. So we need this exposure, we need the finances to come in, and also, like, it's going to create like a much more competitive environment for all the because there's been like a lot of bad actors in this industry, and those bad actors need to be eventually, like, it needs to become a difficult environment for those bad actors to, like, operate. And having more and more competitiveness and having more finance and money coming in means that everyone's going to be working sharper and in a better manner. And that's exactly how we kind of like need that, because otherwise, there's only so much we can do with so much amount of money. And then people, like, the last especially 2 3 years have been like, you know people have kind of like misused that. Not saying any specific people, but I'm just saying, like, the bad actors which have kind of like used their leverage and moved people towards certain directions. I don't
Hmm.
know. So things like these make it difficult. It becomes more competitive, and systems are more sharper. Like, I went down to NFT Paris, and there was no internet, and you couldn't get your own phone signal
Hmm.
there, and their own internet wasn't good enough to be able to supply internet. So I'm like, okay, brilliant. We're on an NFT, which is like a digital. What's his name? It's like the next form of art we're trying to
Hmm.
introduce, which is digital, and it's based on the internet, and we can't access internet. How brilliant is that, right? So from that to like Ordinals Lisbon, and then the immersive aspects, and, like, the stuff which they're trying to do over there. And what I was listening, I thought that was amazing. I thought that, like, in a year's time we've moved, we're developing, we're understanding, and we're coming up with, like, um, more immersive ways of, like, bringing value to the table. And this is good stuff, and it's going to keep getting better and better. But we need that uh, exposure, we need that validation, because this is validation as well. You got to look at it from that angle, like, that we need this kind of validation. Having all these ETFs being opening up is also like validating your rhetoric, which was that, we need to move forward, because we need cryptography as a way of, like, trying to secure the way we do business, interact, transact, save information, publicize information, etc. That makes any sense?
No, it makes 100. Excuse me, 100% sense here. And I appreciate your input in all this too. I think we're reaching the top of the hour, and personally, I think we're kind of reaching a good closing point here. So, players, as usual, I appreciate your time, appreciate you joining us, kind of sharing the wealth of knowledge you have and perspective as well. So, yeah, it's been a really good conversation. I think overall, it's an interesting time. I think in terms of where we're at with kind of new and old financial systems, kind of meeting in the middle, or maybe not meeting in the middle, but meeting period. So yeah, I would say if there's anything else you want to say before we close out, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I think it's been an amazing conversation. Thanks for having me, Humpty, and it's always amazing talking to you, brother. Let's close this conversation. Looking forward to talking to you next week. Look after yourself and everyone else. Thanks for joining us. Look after your health. Lots of exercise, stretches, and drink lots of water. And let's go.
Thank you, Polaris. I'll see you next week.